Well, that's not a lot of pressure right there. Thanks, Dr. Pat. Before I begin, you should know that when I saw Dr. Long in San Diego a few months ago, she made me promise that I would not cuss during this commencement speech. Probably the extra precautions when you have a 26-year-old giving the keynote address. Dr. Long, don't worry, I will not let you down. I'm excited and humbled to be here on this special day. I'd like to thank the Board of Trustees, the faculty and staff for inviting me to speak. But above all, congratulations to you graduates. You know, just 5 years ago, I was sitting where you are today, getting ready to embark on the next journey in my life. I came to Baker University on a football scholarship. And you know, Coach, I don't think you played me enough, but I'm gonna get over it one day. You're doing a great job with the program, Coach. I was conditionally admitted into Baker University. This meant that I was on academic probation. I ended up graduating Baker in 4 years, thanks to a couple miracles, some long john undies for the winters, and a few professors who really believed and invested in me. If it wasn't for those professors, many of us would not be here today. And of course, our parents. But you're not off the hook yet, Baker moms and dads. I'm gonna get back to you in a moment. So before I graduated, and for several months afterwards, I had many false starts. I looked into working for an international NPO. I looked at postgraduate programs in refugee studies, but found only one in Cairo, Egypt that would accept me with under a 3.0 GPA. I even talked to my brother. Our brilliant idea was to start a Chicago-style pizza joint in Beirut, Lebanon. It didn't occur to us that neither of us never knew how to cook. At the time, it seemed like such a good idea. I didn't know where I was going or what I was going to do next, so I did what many of you will be doing today. I moved back in with my parents. Yeah, I was what they call a boomerang kid. I moved back to San Diego, and during my first year, I got fired from 3 different jobs. In between jobs, I worked for my mother at her deli cafe. In fact, she might be the only employer who didn't fire me. But I liked being in San Diego. I liked being with my family, especially my son Elijah, who is here with us today. Elijah, can you raise your hand for me, please? There he is. That guy's my inspiration. Every one of you needs inspiration, and he does that for me. Now, I would like to share with you what I learned during my false starts. Nothing is ever wasted. No amount of knowledge, no amount of experience. In fact, it was one of those jobs that I got fired from that led me to where I am today. While working for Catholic Charities, I discovered that in the 4 years that I was in Kansas, attending Baker University, San Diego had become the largest city for refugee resettlement in the United States. The Iraq War had caused the largest refugee crisis in the Arab world since Palestine in 1948. In fact, there are refugees from all over the Middle East, Asia, and Africa, and over half of them are children. These are the repercussions of war that very few people think about. For the most part, we are gratefully insulated from the destructive forces that my refugee friends have not been so lucky to escape. However, the recent terrorist and tragic attacks in Aurora, Newtown, and Boston bring us closer to our humanity. Anytime in a moment of tragedy, there's time for us to rise to the occasion and help those in need around us. And maybe even give us the chance to feel empathy for those around the world that endure violence. Perhaps this is why I'm here today. My own family was collateral damage in the war in Lebanon. Like many of my refugee friends, I lost family. My mother's brother, his wife, and my baby cousin. And when my family came to the US, I faced many economic and language barriers. You know, my family was really different, and I was different. Unlike most of the kids in the 90s, when I'd open up my lunchbox, I'd find wrapped grape leaves and hummus. And this was before it was the trendy thing to eat. Okay, so let me see how many of you speak Mandarin. Can you please raise your hand? Well, in my speech I said there's a few of you, but I guess not. Imagine how you would feel if you were suddenly dropped into a classroom in China and be expected to do the work. You'd feel discouraged, wouldn't you? Well, that's what it's like to be a young refugee in San Diego. When I worked as a case manager for refugee families, I saw many children from the Middle East with a world of potential and very few opportunities. My best friend Sandy, who's here with me today, once told me, if you find a need and fill it, you will always be successful. I saw a population in need, and that's when I decided to form an organization I call YALLA. It stands for Youth and Leaders Living Actively, but in Arabic it also means let's go, do something, and a million other things. And that's exactly what YALLA does. It is not static. It has served over 600 child survivors of war and has touched every life that it has reached, including my own. The program started small, but it keeps expanding. I've had the humbling honor of being a CNN hero, a winner in the VH1 Do Something Awards. I've spoken at TEDx twice, and I've been featured by the UN, BBC, NPR, and even the award-winning Baker Orange. YALLA is also the recipient of several grants and thousands of donated dollars, which, by the way, for those of you with your checkbooks today, it's never enough. YALLA is providing our refugee kids a place to learn and to grow and gain acceptance in their new country. It began with soccer, or football, an international language, and it expanded into education, leadership, ecotherapy. We've even partnered with organizations to include refugee parents in learning English, and services for families suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. In our latest program, we have partnered with Survivors of Torture International, and through therapy sessions, I've been painfully reminded of the tragic realities that our kids go through. Kids whose parents have been kidnapped, disappear in Iraq, mothers who've been caught up in explosions. I work with kids every day that have lost the people who are supposed to guide and protect them. It's unimaginable sorrow. But the idea of YALLA did not strike me until a year and a half after I graduated from Baker. Did you hear that? It took me nearly 18 months to find my calling, to find my passion in life, to find that need and to fill it. But it could have taken me 2 years, maybe 3 years or more. Which brings me back to you, Baker moms and dads. Who are you? Please raise your hands. Don't be shy, guys. Come on, guys, let's give it up to the people who love you the most. Now, how many of you parents are expecting boomerangs out of these kids down here? Okay, now how many of you graduates see your near future as a boomerang? YALLA, let me see your hands. Strength in numbers, after all. It's okay. It's definitely okay. It's a sign of the times. Now, you Baker mothers and fathers need to be patient with these people down here in front of me, these boomerangs. Some of you might be thinking that you've already been patient, but it isn't over. Without supportive parents, it would have been much more difficult for me to pursue my passions in life. When I first started YALLA, my parents did not quite understand why I was going with it, but nevertheless, they still cut fruit for the soccer matches, carpooled kids to the games, and really supported me in the beginning. All of you need to hear this, but especially you graduates. Celebrate every achievement, even the small achievements. When I got my first YALLA grant for a mere $4,500, I was ecstatic. I couldn't believe that I could finally afford soccer balls and uniforms for my kids. Now I could spend $4,500 in an afternoon. But every achievement, no matter how small, is worth celebrating. Promise me that you will always do that. Another important thing to remember is to compare yourself with yourself. As the executive director of YALLA, I saw many other organizations winning huge grants, and I wanted to be like them. But I quickly realized that compared to where I was a year earlier, or even a month earlier, YALLA was really taking hold, and it was getting stronger. When you compare yourself with yourself, you feel better. So mark your growth and move on. And please, don't be worried about the things that you don't know. There have been many times that I felt like an imposter, a poser, if you will. It's okay, it's part of the game. It's the unspoken part of being a professional. Everyone starts out feeling like an imposter. In other words, you just gotta fake it till you make it. Finally, ask for help. We all need one another to make it in this world. YALLA would not exist if I had not enlisted the help of many competent and passionate people. Marisa, raise your hand. There she is in the back. Marisa Aurora Quiros has helped me build YALLA. YALLA needs her, and I need her. Sandy Tugman, please raise your hand. Sandy Tugman was the first person I told about YALLA, and you have done nothing to encourage me since. I was 17 when we met, but you saw the potential in me. You invested, and it meant a lot to me in my life. You are what made Baker such a special place for me at the time. At the time, Sandy was on the Baker faculty, but now she and her husband own a very cool restaurant in downtown Overland Park called the Great Day Cafe. We should all go. Well, maybe not all at the same time, but I digress. My point is that there are many people that YALLA depends on to be successful. There are community leaders, financial experts, educators, and coaches. I couldn't do this on my own. Please don't be afraid to ask for help. Today means a lot to me. I feel so honored to be here before you, to be a part of this special day. I've made many speeches and conducted several interviews, but today, being here, being back where things really started, where I began to understand myself and the place in which I live, I feel honored. This is the place, and that is the faculty that has taught me to think critically and creatively. There is nothing that compares to a liberal arts education. You know, the real learning begins after you leave Baker, but it's the Baker faculty that has taught you how to learn. I'm so happy for all you graduates, and I'm eager to see what you can do to make this world a better place. After all, that's what really matters. Your job and mine is to make this world a better place. Nothing compares to the joy of serving. Find where you belong, whether it's in Kansas, California, South America, or the Middle East. Find a need that you can fill, and fill it. Thank you very much.